If you're already familiar with hip-hop rap music, the history of the genre of hip-hop, an introduction to a name like Madlib would be a bit pointless. If you know hip-hop, you know Madlib, and you know already how fantastic he's been over the years with so many different artists, and even his own individual beat work too. Definitely someone I need to familiarize myself a little bit more on an individual level. I know he has plenty of albums under his belt, and honestly I think a lot of people that do talk about Madlib tend to talk about him as a producer for other rappers as opposed to his actual instrumental hip-hop work. He's more than just the guy that did Mad Villainy and the guy that did Pinata Bandana. He is much more than that, and I need to tell myself that more often because I'm obviously a person that needs to give those other projects a listen. In 2021, he's still going strong with all kinds of different producer credits across the board with so many different artists, and now we have an album here that's designed in a pretty interesting way. Four Tet Kieran Hebden, who is truly one of my favorite artists ever at this point. I think his discography is inch perfect, really. There aren't many misses in Four Tet's discography, and anyone that is only a purist of hip-hop should really cross over to the electronic world and give some of Four Tet's albums a listen, because you are missing out if you never have. And he has had a handle in this album. I don't think he's actually created any of the beats or any of like the loops or samples. I don't think he's done any of that. From what I've read and his own posts on social media, I think what he's done, he's had a listen to all the things that Madlib's been doing over the past few years and essentially like curated the album, put it all together and, you know, arranged it, sequenced it, all that kind of stuff, which is actually a really cool idea. And I'm not sure if there are any artists that have ever come together and done something like this before, but I'd like to see more of this put together in a way that brings worlds like this in the same world. With that said though, I mean, it's a great idea in theory, but I don't know if it's necessarily created an amazing musical experience here. And I'm not even sure if I personally can tell that Four Tet was involved in this. Maybe I'm being cynical here. I don't know if this is a bit unfair, but I kind of feel like if you didn't know Four Tet had done what he'd done with this album, you wouldn't have listened to this and thought, Four Tet, he's here. He's here. I can feel him. He's here. I'm not here for that Yvette Fielding shit from Most Haunted and all that crap, that ghost hunting stuff that was pretty popular years ago. I just kind of don't think people would have known, but it's fine. You know, it's not a big deal. It's not really about that anyway. It's more about the quality of the music that we've been given. And I think it's pretty good. I mean, I definitely would have expected something a bit more like, whoa, from this album, but that doesn't mean to say that the actual music is particularly bad. I just think it is at times a little so-so. It does feel like there are some classic isms coming through from Madlib though. Tracks like 1-4 Quatorbe is so cartoonish, it's so buoyant, it's just incredibly lively and infectious in the ways that you'd expect a Madlib track to be. I mean, you can think of all the kinds of artists he's collaborated over the years. They would rap over a beat like this. The Latino track is so Latino. The Latin influence comes through greatly here with the guitar. I was listening to this track and thinking if he'd only extended some of these ideas actually and turned it into a bit more of like a bigger portion of the album, I think I would have ended up enjoying this a lot more. I like the way that idea and that genre is fused in together with Madlib's world. The New Normal is much more of a beefy track in terms of like the electronic influence here. It's such an electronic type song, and I again was like getting to this track, and some of these ones that I'm mentioning are near the end of the album, by the way, and I was like, man, if only we'd had this all the way through, because this is easily one of the best moments, and actually probably the biggest example of Four Tet's influence coming through, because I could hear something from some early Four Tet stuff where I was thinking, yeah, you know what, if you added a bit of a, you know, a Madlib tinged beat to an old Four Tet song, I think you'd get this. It's actually some of the first few tracks that let me down the most, I think. The call just has this really repetitive loop that really feels like it could have ended up on like an early MF Doom album. It kind of has that like animated feel to it, but it just really doesn't go anywhere. It just has the same idea repeated over and over again. Gets a bit stale. It's a fine beat, but it really doesn't leave much of an impression on me. Not like, again, some of the best moments here, and I just was expecting every moment to hit, but the album ends up feeling more like vignettes. It's like one idea, then we move on to something else, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is a beat sort of release, it's an instrumental release. Some artists, when they just give you their beats, it may run like that anyway, but I don't know, I've heard other examples in the past where it doesn't feel like these short ideas are just kind of being thrown away as soon as they're done. Rhythm Chant, definitely the best example of that. The core idea is really good, but you need to expand on this beat to really give it a bit more of an oomph. I just don't get that oomphness to it. I just would have thought a track like this needed a bit more detail added to it. And Dirt Knock for Madlib, man, more like Mad Limp. This track just does not have anything for it that really holds my attention. The beat is just so I've seen around and around people calling this one of the best tracks. Just don't hear it. This really isn't long enough to really entertain me, and what you get in that short period of time is just a really stale beat to me. Road of the Lonely Ones actually is one of my favourites though. I think the warm and soulful vocals are perfect for this track. Like, Jesus Christ, it's such a sunny, vibrant song. I love the vocal samples that come through here. There are some other moments where the vocal samples don't add a huge amount, or they detract a little bit from the actual beat, but this, no, Road of the Lonely Ones does not do that. It's funny though, because the track before it actually has a bit of an issue with that, where the vocals kind of feel a bit fadey, they're a bit in and outy, don't really add a lot to the actual song itself, until right at the end where the guy's voice seems to be a bit more at the forefront. Just a bit of an odd moment, but I think Road of the Lonely Ones, again, just has that classic soulful feel to it that Madlib would just nail when he's probably half asleep, to be honest, because he's just so good at that. 2 for 2 for Dilla is definitely another highlight as well. The vocals on this one, we gotta get it together before it's too late. Oh, that's so good, man. That's so friggin' good. Definitely an obvious tribute to Dilla too. I don't know, again, if this was actually taken out of one of Dilla's own tracks or anything like that, but regardless, I think the nod to Dilla is really fantastic and just a great moment for this album. So yeah, I mean, 16 tracks, I guess it was inevitable that there'd be a few here and there that you wouldn't quite end up gravitating towards, or they kind of feel like they come and go a little bit. I think the final track doesn't really close out the album in a particularly great way. It just has some really random vocal samples that wouldn't particularly make sense for this album. It's not like the album had tracks like this before, so I don't know why you'd end on this, to be honest, but I think it sounds fine for what it is. It just feels like a bit of a random closing track. But throughout, I think there's lots of great moments scattered. It's just not fully consistent from beginning to end, in my opinion. And yeah, you know what? I think my expectations were pretty high for what you could have got here, but I don't think the results are like completely mind-blowing, or even all that fresh at points either. I don't think you've got the most unique Madlib album you're ever going to hear or anything like that. I just think it's pretty good. Would I pick this over some of my favourite other instrumental hip-hop albums? Beirut, Little Armenia, that's a really great album and a great example of how instrumental hip-hop can sound. No, I wouldn't pick this over that, but I think for what it is, it's solid. 6 out of 10 from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my review and enjoyed this album. You might like it a lot more than I do. It seems as though a lot of people really love this at the minute, so that's absolutely fine. Just offering my opinion. I'm only one person. I can't, speak for the masses. You might love this a lot more than I do, and that's absolutely fine. But thank you. Hopefully you got something out of what I had to say. Do hope you subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, do have a good day and goodbye.